Hey, Dr. Bryce Lee with Strength Space, answering frequent questions we get. And one of them is, how heavy should we train? How heavy should the loads be? There's two things we need to balance here. On the one hand, too heavy of a load is going to create a risk of an injury. We could snap or tear something. And before we actually get to that point, we're going to experience a sense of threat and fear when we lift that load out, and all of a sudden we get this sort of visceral anxiety that we experience when the load is heavy enough to the point where it's threatening to us like that. If we try to train with loads there's risk that we might get hurt, and there's risk that we might not be able to even get going into the set because we're too fearful that we might cause an injury. On the other end, right, are loads that are very, very light. And if we train with a load that's very light, there's a risk and a problem with the productivity of the exercise. The risk is we'll do so many repetitions that we might actually develop a tendinopathy or an overuse injury. It's not an acute problem, but it's a gradually developing problem of just too many repetitions, too many stretch shortening cycles on the tendon. And then the risk to our productivity of the exercise is that we might quit before the exercise becomes productive, because when you're doing dozens or even hundreds of repetitions, you can get to a point where the burning is so excruciating that you'll quit and tap out of the exercise before you've really stimulated the biggest, strongest muscle fibers. So how do we find a happy middle ground? Usually we aim for a time or a duration of exercise of between 1 and 2 minutes. And that's going to be a good framework for most people. When we want to be a little more safety cautious, we might lean on the 2 minutes, and we want to push the envelope a little bit for a person who tolerates it well, we might go for more like 1 minute. And so instead of saying repetitions or loads, we'll say, what load can this person handle for 90 seconds? And if we can keep selecting a load that they can tolerate for those 90 seconds and then progress weight incrementally higher, so long as they're maintaining that duration that's comfortable for them, that's a way we can find the happy middle ground where the set is not lasting so long that they just quit before it's productive, but it's also not so heavy that it's intimidating or even risky. And that's how we approach that at Strength Space.